The Pro Wrestling Stories Podcast.
Welcome to the Pro Wrestling Stories Podcast, where we transport you to nostalgic moments of wrestling's past. You can listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, YouTube, wherever you get them. And also follow Pro Wrestling Stories on Facebook, at Pro Wrestling Stories, and on Twitter, at PWS_official. Plus, Corey, if you want to add a t-shirt to your collection, I know you do, stop by pwstees.com. You can use the promo code PODCAST. That's it, PODCAST. Dramatic pause for 10% off your order. How about that?
I buy one every week after you remind me.
The fun just keeps on going. If you leave us a 5-star review, at least we hope you do, you could be entered to win a t-shirt at pwstees.com. I'm Chris Toplack. He's Corey Rivard with Dark Side of the Ring, exploring some of the seedier and horrific moments and performers in the history of professional wrestling. Ludvig Borga, a.k.a. Tony Halme, could easily make the list. A deplorable human being. Corey, what do you remember, if anything at all, about Ludvig Borga?
I remember a lot about him. I remember buying everything he was selling. I thought he was the real deal. I was a fan of his as a heel. I liked what he was doing. I thought he might just be this little footnote, this little trivia question, who ended Tatanka's streak. I thought that was all there was to him. Mm-hmm. But then years later, I read this article, and I learned a lot.
Oh, there's so much more. Yes, there is. I barely remember him, by the way. I did see him in the ring. Of course, even at the time, he had the impressive physique. Yes, he did end the streak of Tatanka, but that was basically it for me. Never followed his career really post-WWF until I saw him pop up in the UFC. We will talk about that later on. I've watched that fight against a very young, even though he was like 35, 36 at the time, Randy Couture. So we'll dive into that. But yeah, I mean, I thought that he would also be a footnote, that we would never talk about him on the program.
Apparently there's a lot more to him than just being a Finnish heel.
Ooh, there is. So Tony Halme, and I'm going to call him that because it could be pronounced Halme, Halme.
I'm going Halme.
Okay,
I'm going to go Halme.
Halme in the MMA. Tony Halme, I'm going to call him that.
We can both agree on Tony, though. Tony's...
Sure, Tony's fine. Tony. I'll
say Tony.
Yeah, you know, okay. I got to be honest, too. I really don't care if I pronounce his last name correctly. A.K.A. Borga is an individual that is connected to so many outrageous stories that you would feel you're literally reading a fiction novel. He was openly racist and homophobic and even sported a Nazi tattoo. Yet despite being an overtly bigoted man with deplorable views, he kept surfacing in public worlds of celebrity. He was a pro wrestler, a boxer, a UFC fighter, actor, writer, musician. That's bizarre. And then, of course, this is why you can't always trust the government. He was elected to parliament in Finland as well, too. And even beyond that, before he was even a year into his political term, he overdosed on amphetamines and alcohol, shot an illegal firearm in his apartment during an argument with his wife, and also went into a 3-week coma where he possibly suffered brain damage.
And that's all the time we have for you today, folks. That's everything.
As unbelievable as all of that seems, essentially a Twilight Zone episode, an episode of Black Mirror, it's all completely true. This is Ludvig Borga, The Surreal, Shocking Life of Tony Halme, or Halme, author Stash Jonjak. Hopefully I pronounced that correct. Either way.
Having a day with names today.
He put a lot of work and effort into this. Must commend him for it. And editor J.P. Sarka.
Any research you do, a lot of it is in Finnish. So thanks for translating this for us and getting all this information to us.
Google Translate for the win.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Tony Salami or whatever, the wrestler known as Ludvig Borga. What do we remember from the brief time Tony graced WWF rings? Christened Ludvig Borga Halme played a Finnish anti-American heel that terrorized a talent-deficient WWF roster back in '93. I take slight offense to that.
I do too.
Fine, sure. Cutting spiteful promos decrying the decrepit state of Americans' urban centers, Ludvig Borga was a foil to patriotism. Naturally, he feuded with super patriot Lex Luger and proud Native American Tatanka, even ending the latter's unbeaten streak. But a shocking revelation proved Halme wasn't merely just playing an evil foreigner. He was indeed living the gimmick to a grotesque degree.
Ugh.
Halme was wearing boots. Oh, I got to do a JR here, don't I? Halme, I can't. We'll leave the impressions to you. Halme was wearing boots that were low cut, and he had a very diminutive SS tattoo, Jim Ross recalled on his podcast, Grilling JR. It wasn't huge, but it was there. It was very uncomfortable, and he was uncomfortable and untalented, but he had $1 million look. He looked like a Ferrari with a 4-cylinder motor. When he left, nobody shed any tears. Notably, being a real-life neo-Nazi wasn't enough for Halme to get immediately fired from the WWF. Rather, the promotion would cover the tattoo with tape and had Ludvig Borga wear larger boots. After working less than a year, Halme would leave the WWF due to, as the Wrestling Observer newsletter reports, a severely broken ankle.
Ugh.
Yum. I want to see that.
So I have several questions here. How is being a real-life neo-Nazi not enough to be immediately fired and blackballed from the industry? That's question one. Question two, I'm almost certain the policy has changed, but as a company, now a publicly traded company, wouldn't WWE, WWF back in the day want to do their proper due diligence related to, say, inappropriate tattoos? I mean, they're on television, right?
I mean, when has being a racist bastard ever stopped the WWF from hiring people? He's not the first, he's not the last. I'm sure there's a lengthy history there. And, social media was around at the time to call people out. So if they're not being called out, they're going to keep doing it. There's money to be made.
But imagine sitting front row, though. I'm sitting front row. Let's say I'm there with my son, and it's like, here's this Ludvig Borga. What the hell is that?
The big boots, though. He's got big boots. No one's going to see it.
I love that that's how you cover it up. Hey, just put some tape there, bigger boots. Yeah. He's fine. Even though imagine being uncomfortable in the locker room if you're with him. Just
a Nazi from the ankle down. It's fine.
Man, this is ridiculous.
And as far as tattoo reform, you think they have tattoo reform in the WWF? Like, what if you have like a big tattoo of boobs or something? Is that allowed? I've never seen that in wrestling.
I would imagine not.
It's not an uncommon tattoo.
Well, an interesting one though too would be CM Punk. Remember, he had the Pepsi tattoo or the Pepsi logo, right?
Right.
So at the same time, you'd think, well, I don't know if we can actually put that on action figures or in a video game. We don't want to have to pay royalties to Pepsi Cola.
Yeah, although it's free advertising for Pepsi.
True. I would be trying to milk that if I was CM Punk to say, listen, free Diet Pepsi for the rest of my career. I'll even slip your name into every promo at some point.
Exactly. Just a Pepsi-loving wrestler.
I'm going to beat you over the head like the Pepsi Taste Test Challenge over Coca-Cola.
Oh, yeah, you did. Pepsi Taste Test Challenge. That's how old we are, everybody.
Oh, boy. Yeah, going to a local mall near you, even though half the time I thought, is this even Coke or is it RC Cola? I think you're trying to throw us off here.
That's the best of the three, I think, RC Cola.
There's a little bite to that one. So, the beginning. Early in his career, Tony had already amassed a litany of injuries that, as he said, fortified a growing drug dependency. So, by the way, this is going to be part of the narrative for today. I didn't survive those gigs without painkillers, he said. In the morning, I would take a jar of ephedrine in order to wake up. Then he took ephedrine again. And spoiler, he took it again and again and again just to be able to drive or to sleep. As we know, pro wrestling is always the devil's bargain, a pound of flesh for the bright lights of fame. So, of course, that's what he chose here. His career was precisely that exchange. It was the injuries and the drugs. They were the prices that he had to pay for pro wrestling to pluck him out of obscurity. So, basically, he was transplanted to LA. He arrived there in the 1980s. It was with the American dream in mind, as, of course, many have had as they make it to America. He perceived jobs are always for, as he described, quote, for big and ugly man. What? So he
got nothing,
dedicated
man,
himself
good
to
job.
becoming, guess what? A big and ugly man. So he became a
Got to
fixture.
commend him on that. He did pull that off.
Yeah, he definitely did. Twofold. Becoming a fixture at the famed Venice Beach Gold's Gym. As you can imagine, he began cycling on anabolic steroids and growth hormone to enhance his 6'3" frame. He grew up to about 310 pounds, and much like many bodybuilders in the past, and even now, his body became a glorified science experiment. Ugh. Don't want to put that in your body, obviously.
Not today.
No, that's what drug testing's for. But the world of celebrity loomed closer for Tony. He began to pay his bills serving as a bodyguard for famous musical acts such as Cheap Trick and Gene Simmons of Kiss.
Also a dick.
Yes, but by the way, he's also Jewish. So
Oh, right.
I was thinking about that when I was reading this article, and I thought, did that ever come up in conversation? Or Gene was like, tell me about this tattoo. I've got some problems.
He's been wearing those large boots for a long time.
Perhaps. And then, and I hate bringing up this promotion, if you've seen me live tweet during Dark Side of the Ring, I rip apart this promotion pretty badly. But it was the infamous cocaine and hooker aficionado, Herb Abrams. Of course, he was covered on Dark Side of the Ring, promoter of the UWF. It was horrendous, unwatchable, who spotted Tony and introduced him to the pro wrestling rings. And he was packaged as the Viking. It was every bit as bad as it sounds, by the way. And he had his first pro wrestling matches in sunny California in the fall of 1990. Though his work was stiff and unwatchable, yes, very true, his brute size was perfect for what audiences wanted at the time. Not us. I disagree with that. I like a little substance, not just a body there.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm not watching for the bodies.
Well, here we are. Back in 1993, we would be rooting on, say, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, people with legitimate talent, Randy Savage. But I feel as though with this new generation, they wanted substance, they wanted skill, they wanted storytelling.
I think they always wanted substance and skill. I think the body thing was like the higher ups reading too much into things.
Yeah.
Like since the beginning of time. Like
well, it's true.
People wanted the story, and not trapoids or whatever.
All due respect to, say, Chris Masters. Not that he was untalented.
Lots of respect.
Yeah, but they made him the masterpiece. And basically, they just wanted him to be a body, and he fizzled out too.
Right, exactly. That it never goes that far if you're just basing it on that. Total package, Lex Luger.
So you would think that as the Viking, he wouldn't have much of a career. But it goes further. Because even before landing in the WWF, he would actually sign with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Not the New Japan we see nowadays, but back in the day, it was a little bit different. It was still legitimate, though. So he would spend 2.5 years in the promotion, which is a long time. I tend to forget how long he actually spent there. And that was really where he experienced his first major push. He ascended up the card by teaming with Scott Norton. We'll talk about him at some point. He is legitimately tough, and he had a great career over in New Japan. They actually became the IWGP Tag Team Champions, as a matter of fact, too. Not so bad, huh?
Not so bad. There's a feather in his cap.
I guess so. But then, of course, it crashes like a ship here because Tony was undoubtedly his own worst enemy, and his aggressive personality introduced obvious barriers. We're going to see more of that later on. As the Wrestling Observer newsletter reported on November 7th, 2011, again, this was just in hindsight, just in reflection, that his push ended when he sucker punched and brutalized Norton in a very real street fight, knocking Norton unconscious, which, by the way, I would not want to piss off Scott Norton, by the way. Just ridiculous.
These both sound like a couple dudes that you're not wanting to mess with.
No, especially Scott Norton. If you hear about his reputation, he's a nice guy, he's a loyal guy, but he is every bit believable as he seems.
Right.
So in New Japan, anticipating the beginning of a violent real-life feud, he was essentially punished by having to job out more and more and more, which of course means it's not boding well for your future. Disappointed with his turn in his career, and justifiably so, he left the promotion in June of 1993 to go on to his short-lived run with the WWF. Now, already, he sounds like a bit of an out-of-control animal that cannot be tamed.
Not the first time that they've let wrestlers run court there. They don't always seem to care
No.
if someone's a dick. Not the first asshole they ever hired.
You also have to wonder, did they hire him just simply based on his physique and purposely ignored his attitude and work rate? Because both were not there whatsoever.
I don't know. I say I believed him as a bad guy, like really strongly. I'm not sure what angle they were trying to go with Finland being this like terrifying threat to America.
Finland will take down America. Just you wait. They will rise from the ashes like a phoenix. Yeah, it's bizarre.
Yeah, not a big history of that. But
beautiful country, by the way.
But he's believably hateable, right? Like, so I always bought him. You barely remember me say, so I guess that didn't translate to everybody.
No, not to me. Like, of course, I'm familiar with the name. A friend of mine had his action figure, and I watched a few matches
of
him.
SS tattoo on there?
No. If they left that on, imagine that. Like, what is this? How could you do this?
Yeah.
No, they did not.
It stood for Sharon Stone. It was 1993.
I remember very little about him, which is rare in this case because, as you know, when it comes to these episodes, when it comes to these figures, I tend to be pretty engulfed in this.
I figured you probably watched his DVD 9 times, and
yeah, all 6 minutes of his DVD.
All right. Well, Ludvig Borga, we're already at life after the WWF, so that was his whole spot in the WWF. Though awash in injuries and addicted to pills, Halme's professional wrestling career established his celebrity in his home country of Finland, which we love. We love Finland, don't we, Chris?
They're great, and actually they are very loyal listeners to this very podcast.
Absolutely. Back home, he landed a spot on the Finnish version of American Gladiators, performing as Vikinki, which translates to the Viking, from 93 to 95. I think he should have been called Vikinki in WWF, personally.
God.
Or had like a valet.
How could you take him seriously? I am Vikinki, and I will bring down America, you'd say.
Missed opportunity.
Yeah.
He would even dabble in acting, appearing in Die Hard with a Vengeance. Those days in the United States were officially over. Fist giveth and fist taketh away. I looked for a scene. I didn't watch the whole movie, but I did try to find a scene with him in it. I did not find one. Yeah, oh well. Not through with pro wrestling, Halme joined Europe's Catch Wrestling Association in 95. Halme even continued using the Ludvig Borga gimmick. But as per his pattern, Halme's run would end dubiously.
Was he even allowed to use that, by the way? I'm sure that was trademarked by WWF. They probably never caught wind of it because otherwise they would have sent the lawyers after him and said, Ludvig, huh? Okay,
yeah,
sure, for the right price.
Yeah, exactly. I think he used that name even through just referencing it in politics and everything. I don't think he ever let that go too far from him.
Which is really weird. I am Ludvig Borga. They're like, who?
Yeah. The Finnish newspaper City reported Halme's career in wrestling ended when he was charged with drug importations, sales, and manufacturing. In his own words, this was completely unfounded. It was not until February 97, when Halme had already begun his career as a boxer, that all charges were dropped. Concurrently, he pursued professional boxing, becoming a 2-time Finnish heavyweight champion. Considering Halme was an established celebrity in Finland with presumed drawing power, the legitimacy of these fights is questionable. Mm-hmm. His lone appearance in the UFC was unquestionably a debacle. Did you watch any of the boxing?
No, I have not watched the boxing, but it doesn't surprise me. Let me put it to you that way.
Exactly. Especially, it sounds like he's got connections in politics probably already at this point. He's probably looking to look good. They love him over there. Why not make him a boxing
fighting
champion?
Glorified tomato cans, as they say, which is basically jobbers who are willing to do the job for a small sum of money.
Glorified tomato cans. Nice.
Yeah.
We rename the podcast that.
Glorified tomato cans with Chris Toplack and Corey Rivard.
Yeah, we need a t-shirt. Glorified tomato cans. When I go to the Octagon, I go there to kill or be killed, Halme immortally stated before his fight at UFC 13. His opponent, another curious historical footnote, was a debuting Randy Couture. At first, I'll try to hit him as hard as I can. If I miss at that point, I'll try to headbutt him. If I miss at that point, I'll rip his arms off and rip his legs off. I got balls of iron, and I go there to rip his head off or die trying. Adorable, isn't he?
Yeah, such a
Really sweet.
kind-spirited man.
Yeah, he means well, that's for sure.
Jeez.
According to Couture's book, Becoming the Natural, My Life in and Out of the Cage, while watching the pay-per-view with family, Couture's mother found Halme's words so disturbing, she began to sob uncontrollably. Even more extreme, Halme's interview caused Couture's wife to vomit in a trash can. Nice. That's
Quite the
that's an
scene,
image.
huh?
Yeah, and he's so kind to him after. He actually shakes his hand after. He probably felt pretty upset that he was making his loved ones vomit and cry.
True.
I'd
Especially
imagine.
to Captain America as he became Mr. Randy Couture
Right.
as well.
Yeah, and he left arms intact and legs intact, so all was well.
And plus, he lost in about a minute. So
Yeah.
watching this fight, I could tell you actually where I was because the first time I saw it was about 2004. I got into the UFC heavily in about 2003, 2004, and I continued on for many years. And I recall watching this fight, and again, it took place many years prior, but Tony certainly looked the part, but Randy Couture was legitimate. Like, he was a true grappler. He was an NCAA collegiate wrestler. He won medals at the Pan American Games. This was actually Randy's first MMA fight, which is hard to believe, but it was a very easy victory for him. He took back mount, locked in a very tight rear naked choke, a very textbook victory. So you could tell, yes, Tony looked the part, but he just did not have that skill set.
Yeah, and it's very satisfying after all the things we've heard about his past and his character to watch him lose in such a rapid and painful manner. A wrestler with no actual discernible skill set walking to the ring with a guy who's a skilled grappler. You know what's coming, and it's very satisfying to watch him get destroyed.
Very much so. And of course, as we know, the controversy continues. He wrote a biography in 1998. By the way, it's not even though he accomplished all that much, really, when you think about it. And it's 1998, and he's saying, here's my biography, here's my career. It's like, okay, so you dabbled in wrestling, you dabbled in boxing, which many suspect was fixed. You were in, I guess what, the Finnish American Gladiators. That's it so far. You didn't really do much else.
But I'm picking up, and I don't know if I'm reading it all correctly, but he just seems really, really loved, like celebrated in his country. Like,
I guess so.
So he's just a big deal. It's like Paris Hilton writing a biography here, you know?
And here's the weirdest part. So he has the biography in 1998 called God Forgives, I Do Not. And then a 2001 follow-up, The Day of Judgment. And this is where he announces his homophobia and racism to the world. So in 2020, when you're calling people out on it, and justifiably so, and you're saying, hey, this person's homophobic or they're racist, in this case, he's the one saying, I am openly announcing it. Like, how perplexing is this?
Yeah, you've got full control over what you write in this book. You're going to make sure everyone knows this. You're going to hide it at all.
I'm never going to read the books, even for research purposes. So it's bizarre, but just a reminder that Tony is an absolute piece of garbage. Both examples there. And not only that, Corey, disappointingly, he would actually go on to pen 3 more books. I can't believe this. And you're right, his popularity was pretty high among certain circles in Finland. He would land more acting roles. It would also begin, guess what? A musical career.
Oh, yeah, buddy.
That's right. His single, The Vinkinki, which translates to Viking, you can't make this up, went gold in Finland, meaning it sold more than 5,000 copies, a lot different than going gold in America. But Vinkinki would even reach number 2 status on the singles charts in 1999. One of the lyrics of Vinkinki proudly proclaims his homophobia, saying, exit only is tattooed onto my arse. And then news media would report, indeed, he had tattooed exit only on his buttocks. So bizarre.
Yeah. I actually watched the music video for this right before we started recording. Got a lot of questions for the Finnish music scene. Have you heard it?
No.
It's just him in a wrestling ring,
This is
just roughly chanting things.
I think you're taken aback too, because every time we discuss a topic on the show or wrestler, you're like, Chris is like the encyclopedia. But with this guy, you're like, you haven't even bothered. And it's like, I can't immerse myself.
Guy.
Yes, I can't immerse myself into him. It's just like such an intolerant asshole. I really don't want to spend my time with him. But what is the most bizarre to me is the fact that he's been giving all of these opportunities time after time after time. And as you noted, his popularity continues to rise.
Yeah, being a dick is not enough to be excommunicated from success,
No,
unfortunately.
so we go through all of that. We go through the wrestling, the boxing, the MMA, the music, the acting, and now, of course, politics. Naturally so.
That's always the last stop, ain't it?
I think so. I think he just wants the pension.
Dick. Yeah, exactly. But one more, just make sure, anyone who's listening, you go look up Vikinky on YouTube. You won't be sorry.
God.
Well, you'll be sorry, but you'll have 1 minute of full glory and then about 3 of vomiting.
I'm not subjecting myself to 4 minutes of that nonsense. I just can't.
Come
do
on.
It. Maybe.
All right.
Like a YouTube live video of just my reaction of like me vomiting in my mouth.
Yeah, ripping your own limbs off. All right, politics and a plunge into darkness for Tony Halme. Tony Halme lassoed this horrible momentum and propelled his career towards a new arena, politics. Halme's celebrity and unapologetic views would attract him to the far-right True Finns party. Under this party's banner, Halme was elected to Finland's parliament in March of 2003. He captured 16,390 votes in the Helsinki constituency, a number Finnish media would describe as staggering.
That's a lot of votes.
It's a landslide.
I mean, for a country that size, that's actually fairly sizable, unfortunately.
Exactly.
Ugh.
This bastard can't fail. It's odd.
No.
The day after his victory, he said in a radio interview, here we go, if a lesbian can be elected president, then why can't I be elected to parliament? After immediate media backlash, Halme responded by saying he truly thought Finnish President Tarha Halonen, despite being married to first gentleman of Finland, Pentti Rajajarvi, something. We're having a time here today.
I like your effort.
Yeah, thank you. Thought the Finnish president was a lesbian. So he didn't mean his comment as an insult. And he goes on to explain, I got brain damage from cirrhosis of the liver.
I like how it just jumps to that. Excuse me, I have a selective memory because I have brain damage.
I'm going to use that for the rest of my life. Sorry about that. I had cirrhosis a couple years ago.
Mail the letter, damage. Corey. Mail the letter. I had brain damage from cirrhosis of the liver.
Exactly. Do forgive me. 4 months after being elected to parliament, Halme's life appeared ideal. He was enjoying political success, continued fame, and even contemplated a run for president.
Sweet Jesus.
Precisely. But the summer of 2003 would begin Halme's inescapable plunge into darkness. That's when it starts?
Yeah.
I feel like he was plunging into darkness as soon as he exited the womb. It all began on the night of Thursday, July 3rd, 2003. When Halme combined heavy drinking with taking massive quantities of amphetamines. He was suspected by onlookers of driving drunk to his apartment in Helsinki. When he arrived home, he and his wife Katja began an argument that would last into the early morning. At 7 a.m. on July 4th, apartment residents heard the sound of a pistol firing in the Halme's apartment. Police would later confirm Tony had pulled the trigger. Thankfully, no one was hit by the bullet. After the gunshot, the argument between Tony and Katja escalated, prompting the police to surround the couple's apartment. Eventually, an ambulance would arrive at 10 a.m. and haul Tony away to a hospital. While hospitalized, Halme slipped into a coma that would last 3 weeks. Halme's election manager, Veikko Valen, would speculate the lack of oxygen from the amphetamine and alcohol overdose caused permanent brain damage in Halme. Valen said Halme was never the same afterward. Probably a blessing.
Oh, my God. So if you're keeping track at home, neo-Nazi, racist, homophobic, domestic abuser, fuck this guy.
I blame the cirrhosis.
This entire story feels like a macabre novel of a man consumed by hatred and intolerance and further fueled by his demons known as addiction. Certainly, he cannot stay away from the pills and the alcohol. And as somebody who is apparently in Parliament, you'd think that is a cardinal sin, right?
You would. It all plays out like a movie. But even Scarface had redeemable qualities. I can't find any here.
No, I mean, at least in Scarface, you don't want him to die in the end. Come on,
Exactly.
come on,
Exactly.
take me down. And like, at least
Yeah.
there you think, oh man, why did he have to die? Tony, just hold on. And then you have this Tony who's just a piece of fucking shit.
I can't seem to find a rock that is unturned here that might have some sweet other side to him. So far, only bad. Only bad.
So, unsurprisingly, spoiler, the story continues to take a darker turn.
False. That is surprising. How does it get darker?
So
That is a surprise.
the police investigated the incident, finding an unmarked military pistol. That's an ultimate no-no. Ammunition and thousands of pills of drugs, including anabolic steroids, in his apartment. This is according to the Associated Press. Very reputable, by the way. And just a few of the charges. He had 6 crimes, including drunk driving, the illegal possession of imported drugs, amphetamine usage, owning an unlicensed pistol. All but the drunk driving charge would stick. And then he faced a 4-month prison sentence. And Parliament discussed ousting him, but opted not to. You want to know why, Corey? Because it's a lengthy process. That's why. It's going to take too long. It's too annoying. You know what? Just leave him in. Are you kidding me?
Politics, da-da-da-da-da-da. They're the same everywhere, it sounds like.
God. So for a politician who's messaging focused on strengthening law and order and demanding tighter control on drugs, he appeared to be a hypocrite. And he was, because he's the one with thousands of pills that he's storing away.
Shocker.
Yeah.
Didn't see that one coming.
Now, here's where it gets weirder. So strangely, despite his 4-month prison sentence, he was still elected to Helsinki Council in the fall of 2004. And then beyond that, his wife, she gets granted a divorce in 2005. Good on her for getting out. She would later write a tell-all biography, and this time it detailed basically everything, and also how Tony threatened her with an axe.
With what?
With an axe.
With an axe.
Yes.
With an axe.
The story continues.
Just up in the ante here.
Jesus.
Just up in the ante here continuously. An axe.
There's another one, too. When not in prison, he fueled further controversy by beating up a guy at a hamburger stand. Charges were not filed, by the way, and drawing a parliamentary reprimand by declaring during a parliamentary speech, every single pedophile should get their nuts cut off, get punched in the ass with a pin, and thrown into a dungeon for the rest of their life. Maybe the only thing I quasi-agree with.
Yeah, the redeemable quality. There it is.
That's about it. One sentence. Everything else is bullshit, though. February 2006, he's back again. Did you miss me? Would face a new charge of drunk driving. He was admitted into a psychiatric ward in order to seek treatment for his addictions, those demons taking over, and he would remain in treatment for 3 months. Sounds like he needs 3 years at this point. And after his treatment ended, he would get convicted for earlier drunk driving episode and sentenced to 80 days in prison. And then in court, he proclaimed that he had neurological problems. He just has all the excuses in the world, by the way, doesn't he? Stemming from his 2003 incident. He's like, listen, I have neurological problems. I have brain damage. It's like, you're throwing a lot of curveballs out there. And he said he would commonly seemed drunk, and he had obscured speech, but it's because of the brain damage, basically, is what he's saying.
Of course.
Which is such bullshit. And at the end of 2006, he would officially declare that he would not seek re-election to Parliament. In 2007, he would be granted a disability pension. Come on, really? Which, of course, rightfully so, caused bad blood between him and the other members of Parliament. Because he's not there anymore. How is he granted disability pension? It's like, we're going to take care of you even though you besmirched our name.
Well, but it has a lot in common with American politics. So,
God. So following this, he would resign from Helsinki Council due to illness as well, and his political career was officially over. Now collecting a nice pension check. He had all the free time in the world, so how does he spend it, Corey? Falling over in a sauna and needing 20 stitches in the nose, falling over again, and crushing his face in Thailand, and also dating an erotic dancer. She rose to prominence in Finland via a sexting scandal. with Finland's foreign minister, and she actually sold her screenshots of the sexting to a Finnish magazine. So
I looked her up. She's quite a piece of work.
oh, we have
There's
a lot of
there's some public urination involved there.
Oh, Jesus.
Finland, like, you're growing in interest to me. This is an interesting nation.
Oh, a lot of less than desirable characters we're noting in this story.
But not our listeners.
No.
Our Finnish listeners are the best of the best.
Oh, jeez. I mean, you got to make up for it somehow.
These are just the worst ones.
True.
The rest are
I hope
terrific.
that this is just a very small fraction of what the country represents. I'm optimistic and I believe so. But in this case, I would just say, get out of here. We don't want you associated with our fine country. You're pieces of garbage.
I kind of wish I knew about all this when it was happening. Because it would have just been like, tune in next week. You know, just checking in on Ludvig Borga for the last 20 years. See what he's doing next.
Oh, if he was around during the days of social media, God, I would love the backlash. And deservingly so, obviously.
Yeah. All right, and here we are. The death of wrestling's Ludvig Borga.
Oh, God.
In October of 2009, Halme was again charged with drunk driving. He was drug tested, and the results came back positive for cocaine and amphetamines. The police searched his house and found an illegal Luger. Not his first time riding in with a Luger. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Had a little feud with Lex Luger at one point.
Didn't last that long.
No. Found an illegal Luger pistol along with 100 9mm rounds of ammunition. When there are no good things to remember, it's better to let all the shit be. Tony Halme.
That's his prolific quote. Are you kidding me?
That's what you'll be remembered by. It's on his tombstone.
Oh, God.
After this latest charge, Halme's tell-all interview with Finnish magazine Halme? Sure. Was published. In it, he detailed his brain damage, of course he did, and stated he had trouble speaking and walking and even needed sticky notes to help him remember to do household chores.
Karma.
Yeah. Tony Halme's last interview, he says, alcohol makes me feel good. Halme would opine, despite his suffering from liver cirrhosis, drugs, on the other hand, momentarily help with depression, which is why they are so dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, Halme would never make it to court for this latest charge. On January 8th, 2010, Tony Halme raised a gun to his temple, squeezed the trigger, and ended one of the most unusual lives ever associated with the squared circle. 2 days would pass before his body was discovered. Upon hearing the news, Halme's ex-wife Katya wondered if something was wrong with her when she didn't mourn.
Not at all.
I don't think so. Did anyone mourn? I wonder.
Nope.
Though it's human nature to feel uneasy about passing judgment upon the dead, the story of Halme's extreme life invites moral scrutiny from us all. And in reading the closing words to Halme's book, Judgment Day, Halme clearly understood what his brazenness invited. For me, the circle is closed. I've come home, and here I will stay. I'm willing to put everything in the game. Every day is a day of judgment. When the gong rings for the last time, it is futile to request a revision.
That's odd.
Yeah. Wow. I'm happy I don't have to read those books.
No kidding. So what we just heard was undoubtedly one of the most bizarre character profiles of an openly despicable man who, despite all the controversy associated with his life, still managed to latch on to fame as if he were a moth to a flame.
Indeed. My God. In such a weird way. He's like a Forrest Gump of like a bad Forrest Gump.
Yeah, he's like the complete opposite. He finds himself in all these situations. So yeah, and then I just and I sold shrimp.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is one of those ones where, you know, typically you hear our voice and it's Brian Pillman or Rick Rude, and we get to the part where they pass away. You know, it's strained. We feel horrible. I still haven't gotten over a lot of these deaths in wrestling. This one, I feel chipper. I feel perfectly fine.
Yeah, catch you never, buddy.
This concludes yet another episode of the Pro Wrestling Stories podcast. Next week, we'll get to a hero. Enough of these deplorable assholes.
I kind of like bashing people.
Yeah, that's also true, too.
Who else do you want to bash? Anybody else on your list?
We can always have a Wrestler's Court Part 2, maybe.
Yeah, sure. There's lots to bash out there. We'll get back to some. I don't think we'll beat Nazi tattoo at all.
No, I don't think so.
Still some bad.
The bar's been raised. I was going to say, I sincerely hope you join us for future episodes where we dive deep into the archives to bring you more of these articles to life in audio form. Listen and subscribe to future episodes on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, you name it. And follow Pro Wrestling Stories on Facebook at Pro Wrestling Stories. Plenty of great articles and photos on there. And on Twitter at PWS_official. Stop by PWSTees, that is TEES.com. And an exclusive for you. Yes, you. Take an additional 10% off your order using promo code podcast. Plus, leave us a review. If you do so, you could be entered to win said t-shirt from PWStees.com. From Chris Toplack and Corey Rivard, happy trails to you until we meet again.